I'm going to come on to our section called Buy or Bye-Bye. So I'm going to show you different products.
Okay.
And I would like you to let me know whether you think that is something that is worth buying or you would say bye-bye to.
Okay.
Starting with lubricants.
Oh, buy. Definitely. Yeah. 100%. Non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable.
Okay.
Fab. And why was that
Easy
such
answer.
a strong buy?
I think that lubricant is the best and most cost-effective and least invasive way that anyone can improve their sex life. And historically, the attitude towards lubricants was you're not turning someone on enough or they're not turned on enough, and that's indicative of a problem. It's just not the case. And lubrication is a natural process that happens more for some people, less for other people. It's impacted by our hormones, where we are in our menstrual cycle, if we're in the moment or if we're super distracted, what medications we might be taking. And the reality is it takes away elements of friction, increases sensation and pleasure, and there is absolutely no shame in using it whatsoever. And the only kind of analogy that I can also make is that in no other part of our life, if we had like a cream or a liquid or a pill or something that would instantly make things better, would we ever think twice about it?
Yeah.
But for some reason, we still have this kind of historical shame and difficulty around them. And
yeah,
I mean, at some points they're a complete non-negotiable. For example, postnatally, when people are breastfeeding because their estrogen is impacted and vaginal dryness is more common. Again, why we don't tell women who are postnatal this, I do not know. Menopause, obviously.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Perimenopause. And so there are times when it's really important, but also it's really useful for people that are having painful sex or difficult penetration as well.
Yeah.
It's an easy win in my book.
You say the reasons why it's probably taboo, it's people feeling like, oh, you're not turning someone on enough. Or we filmed with Dr. Nagler about egg freezing and fertility earlier, and she talks about how the best thing you can do as a couple going through fertility treatments is to not see it as like against each other, see it as a team. It's not her fault, it's not his fault, you're in this in the team. And I think that that's definitely something that you probably see in sex as well. It's like people seeing this as a solo sport rather than a team sport, and obviously it can be a solo sport, but when you're with someone else, it should be a team sport.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things that I always focus on is this idea of together, because I think one of the things is we try and position the failing in one person, and actually often it's about the dynamic and whether it's one person might be struggling more. But one of the things that makes sexual problems worse is feeling like your partner doesn't understand, or that you can't tell them what's going on, or you not being able to explain it, and the miscommunications that come about as a result of that, and the assumptions. And the assumptions are basically where we have information gaps. We often fill them with the worst case scenario when it comes to sex.
God, I feel like you need to repeat that again, because I think that could be applied to so many different areas of life. When there's a knowledge gap, you can fill with assumptions of the worst case scenario.
So someone is feeling super anxious about the fact that they take a really long time to orgasm, and they feel that their partner keeps trying, and they feel really distracted every time they have sex because they want to please their partner and they want to be able to have an orgasm, and it becomes a bit like an orgasm hunt, and it becomes more and more stressful. And one partner is thinking, okay, well, it's because I don't turn you on enough. The other's thinking, okay, it's because I'm not attractive enough to them. And actually, it's nothing to do with that. But the worst case scenario kind of assumptions keep bouncing back and forth between each other. Sex becomes more stressful. Nobody's able to say, do you know what? Actually, it's because I'm finding sex really uncomfortable, or it's because I'm finding that I'm really in my head, or it's because it's never happened and I don't want to fake it with you because I don't want to start that cycle. And the other partner is thinking, okay, well, what am I doing wrong? Am I not good at this? And these are things that it becomes this kind of back and forth between partners, and they don't know how to communicate about it. So few of us are actually taught how to have these conversations. Where that kind of gap of information is, actually, we need to just do something differently here, but we have to be able to have the conversation in order to do that. And that's where things can get really stuck. And the more stuck they get, the more round we go kind of cyclically with that. And often that's when people come and see someone like me.
Do you have any tips for couples navigating those conversations, or even just bringing up that conversation as a first step?
Yeah, I think the first thing is you've just got to kind of sometimes take a deep breath and do it, and know that it probably will feel a bit uncomfortable, or it will probably feel a bit awkward, that you can use something like a scene in a film to jump it off, or a conversation, say like, oh, I listened to a podcast and they were talking about sex today. What do you think about this? Or, and it's okay to laugh about it as well. It's to be like, we don't know what to do about this. There's now so many great sexual wellbeing book resources, podcasts, and I think it's not feeling like it is a disaster, not feeling like you've failed, not feeling like there's nothing that can be done. Because like we say, in any other area of your health and well-being, you would probably feel more comfortable looking for answers, addressing it, changing something, and seeing it as that together. So being like, okay, what can we do together to change this? Makes it feel, again, like we're not blaming one partner, because as soon as one partner feels blamed, that's not going to be a good thing for desire. That's not going to motivate someone to want to kind of change something sexually or to enjoy sex more.
Yeah. Next up.
Yes.
Vibrators and sex toys.
Yes.
Solo and partnered.
Yeah, I mean, I'm slightly biased because I work with a sex toy brand called Lilo, so I'm their UK expert. But yeah, I think they are a great addition. Again, like quite an easy win, either partnered or solo pleasure. So functionally, when I'm working with people who are kind of learning about their bodies or having painful sex or haven't had an orgasm or things like that, then we can also kind of integrate sex toys and pleasure products into their psychosexual therapy. So exercises for them to be doing at home. But it's a great way of introducing novelty, different sensation. It is not a competition between sex toys and your partner. I think that's the kind of, again, like the historical assumption is that one will kind of outsource the other. But they're a great thing for couples to try together. They can be used all over the body to increase sensation, and they can increase arousal because it's basically like a nudge to the nervous system. So it kind of can awaken things a bit more as well. But yeah, and ultimately they're a lot of fun and a lot of people have a great time with them.
Pelvic floor trainers.
Yes. If people need guidance and they feel like they need something to guide them and motivate them and focus them, then they can be a great option. I don't think that everybody needs them. I think that the pelvic floor conversation needs to happen more kind of across the board. Typically, we only hear about it in pregnancy and kind of beyond, a bit more kind of in menopause. But if it's something that helps you to focus on this area of your well-being, then yes, but I don't think they're an essential.
In my third year of medical school, I saw a bladder prolapse. Yeah, it is interesting. Pregnancy seems to be the focus, but your pelvic floor is important for every single phase of your life.
It's such an important part of your health. And, I work with a lot of pelvic health physiotherapists. There's a great book called Strong Foundations by someone called Claire Bourne, who is an amazing pelvic health physio. And one of the things she talks about is pelvic health across the lifetime. And I've worked, for example, with lots of people that have had painful sex or having painful sex, and we can track it back to things like UTIs in childhood or really kind of recurrent thrush or tensing too much or feeling like you can't go to the loo and feeling really anxious about that. And I think that it's, it gets ignored a lot of the time. And one of the things that I work with a lot is something called Vaginismus, which is an involuntary tightening of the pelvic floor muscles so that penetration is either impossible, painful, or really difficult. And pelvic floor training is a part of that. Now, a pelvic floor trainer is not going to be useful for someone who can't fit, more than a little finger or a cotton bud inside themselves. But it's learning about the pelvic floor. We have to kind of understand the basic premise of what it does, and it affects everything. It's about our bowels, it's about sex, it's about, orgasm strength, it's about incontinence, it's about exercise, it's about so many things.
Erotic books, audiobooks.
Yeah, there are some great erotica apps. There are some great kind of products for that. I think, one of the things that is really good for that is that people can kind of conjure up their own imagery, and in a way, kind of your imagination is the best pornography you've got in terms of that, because it's tailored to what you like. And I think that the other thing is it can bring people's attention to sex. It can kind of introduce the idea of something erotic, which can kind of make them start to feel turned on or to start to feel kind of sexually charged or sexually interested. And when we talk about desire, that motivation for sex, for people who struggle to get in the moment, something like that can be a really helpful cue for helping them to start to kind of feel more ready for sex or kind of masturbation.
Do you think with the rise probably in porn being a lot more accessible than it once was. Do you think that that contributes potentially to the decrease in sex that is happening? Because in my head, when I think about audiobooks or erotic books, you're saying, you know, you kind of envision things in your head, whereas in today's porn can be extremely full on, especially, you know, teenagers. I just think if you've been watching extremely aggressive, quite intense porn whilst you're a teenager and then you have sex for real for the first time, is that going to be disappointing or not what you expected? And then people turn to porn before having sex.
Yeah, I think we have a huge problem, which is a gap in the education around all of this, understanding that the two are very separate. The age verification process for kind of pornography came in recently last year. You know, they are different things. One was not designed to be an educational tool. And I think that's where we have some of the biggest problems. If that's the most accessible content for people, rather than better sex education, more kind of nuanced, open, educative conversations, and we have this kind of taboo and stigma around asking questions or not knowing where or how to ask questions, or even questions are allowed to be asked, then Google offers a kind of, you know, an unlimited amount of answers, unfortunately, that we're then not in control of.
Intimate oil, massage oils.
Or is indifferent to lubricants.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to say no to these ones. Bye-bye to these ones. Because I think that, you shouldn't be using any products that are not designed for your genitals, on your genitals, as number one. Particularly, you know, ingredients on things are really important. We don't want to be using things like glycerins, or anything kind of, you know, flavoured or scented. So that would be a no. And also, like, there are great quality, like, gynecologist approved, medically approved lubricants that can do that job for you.
Thank you for listening. If you would like to hear the full episode with even more jam-packed knowledge, then just click the link in the description.